Jake Collins stepped off the transport ship and looked around the docking bay of New Horizons Station. The metal walls curved high above his head, and bright lights made everything look clean and new. This was his first time on a space station and his first time working with aliens. "Welcome to New Horizon," said Commander Lisa Park, a tall woman with short black hair. "You must be our new engineer." "Yes, ma'am," Jake said, picking up his bag. "Jake Collins, good to have you here. We'll start the tour right away. There's a lot to see." They walked through long halls with windows that showed the stars outside. Jake had never seen so many stars before. On Earth, the city lights made them hard to see. Here in space, they filled the black sky like tiny diamonds. "We have 3 different species working on this station," Commander Park explained. "Humans like us, the Keth who look like tall blue people, and the Zalari who are more like reptiles. Everyone gets along well here." Jake nodded. He had read about the other species, but he had never met any of them. His stomach felt nervous and excited at the same time. They turned a corner and entered a large room full of computers and screens. Several people were working at different stations. Some looked human, but others were clearly different. "This is our main science lab," the commander said. "Let me introduce you to some of the team." A blue-skinned person with 4 arms looked up from a computer and waved. That must be one of the Keth, Jake thought. Near the back of the room, someone with green and brown scales was looking at samples under a microscope. "Zara," Commander Park called. "Come meet our new engineer." The scaled person looked up. Jake could see right away that she was female, though her features were different from human women. Her face was more angular, and her skin was covered in small, smooth scales. Her eyes were large and golden, and she had no hair on her head. Zara walked over to them. As she got closer, Jake noticed something strange happening. Her scales were changing color. The green and brown was shifting to purple and red, like a mood ring he had owned as a child. "Zara, this is Jake Collins," the commander said. "Jake, this is Zara, our best xenobiologist. She studies how different species adapt to living together." "Nice to meet you," Jake said, holding out his hand. Zara stared at his hand for a moment, then looked at his face. Her scales were getting brighter, the purple and red becoming more intense. She looked embarrassed and worried. "Hello," she said in a quiet voice. Her English was good, but she had an accent that made her words sound musical. She quickly shook his hand and stepped back. Jake noticed that her hand felt warm and dry, not cold and wet like he had expected. Her scales were smooth and pleasant to touch. "Zara will be working with you on the life support systems," Commander Park said. "She knows more about atmospheric processing than anyone on the station." "Great," Jake said, smiling at Zara. "I look forward to working with you." Zara's scales turned even brighter red. She made a small noise that sounded like a squeak and turned away quickly. I have to go," she said. "Excuse me." She hurried out of the lab, leaving Jake and the commander standing there. "Did I do something wrong?" Jake asked. He felt confused and a little hurt. Commander Park looked puzzled too. "I don't think so. That was unusual. Zalari are normally very polite and social. Maybe she's just having a bad day." They continued the tour, but Jake kept thinking about Zara and her strange behavior. Her scales had been so bright and colorful. He wondered what that meant in her culture. Maybe bright colors meant anger or fear. Later that day, Jake was in the engineering section, learning about the station's systems. Dr. Ben Carter, the chief medical officer, came to find him. "How's your first day going?" Dr. Carter asked. He was an older man with gray hair and kind eyes. "Good, I think. Though I might have upset one of the Zalari scientists. Her scales turned really bright colors when I met her, and then she ran away." Dr. Carter looked interested. "Bright colors? What colors exactly?" "Purple and red, mostly. They got brighter when I talked to her." Dr. Carter said thoughtfully. "That's interesting. Zalari scales do change color based on their emotions, but usually they have good control over it in professional settings." "What do those colors mean?" Jake asked. "Well, without being an expert on Zalari biology, purple and red usually indicate strong emotions. Excitement, arousal, intense feelings of some kind." Jake felt his face get warm. "Arousal? You mean like..." "Could be. Or it could be fear, anger, or just surprise. It's hard to say without knowing more about the situation." That evening, Jake ate dinner in the station's cafeteria. He saw Zara sitting alone at a table on the other side of the room. Every time he looked in her direction, her scales would flicker with color even from that distance. A Zalari male came and sat at Jake's table. He was larger than Zara, with darker scales and a more muscular build. "You are the new human engineer," the Zalari said. "I am Vex. I work with Zara in the biology department." "Nice to meet you, Vex. I'm Jake. Is Zara okay?" "She seemed upset when we met today." Vex looked over at Zara, then back at Jake. His scales showed hints of what looked like amusement, lighter colors with yellow flecks. "Zara is, how do you say, embarrassed. Her body is reacting to you in a way she cannot control." "Reacting how?" "Her scales show her emotions. When she is near you, they show feelings she does not want others to see." Jake looked over at Zara again. She was staring down at her food, but her scales were showing those bright purples and reds again. "Is that bad?" Jake asked. Vex's scales showed more yellow. Definitely amusement now. For a Zalari female to lose control of her scale colors in public? Very embarrassing. Like if a human could not stop blushing or sweating when nervous. But what is she feeling that's so embarrassing? "That?" Vex said, standing up with his food tray. "You will have to ask her yourself, if you can get close enough without making her run away again." After Vex left, Jake sat alone, thinking. He looked over at Zara one more time. She happened to look up at the same moment, and their eyes met across the room. Her scales blazed with color, brighter than ever. She quickly looked away and hurried out of the cafeteria. Jake sighed. Tomorrow he would have to work with her on the life support systems. He hoped he could figure out how to make her more comfortable around him. He had never made anyone react so strongly before, and he didn't know if it was good or bad. But one thing he knew for sure. Zara was the most interesting person he had ever met, human or alien. Her golden eyes, her musical voice, and yes, even her changing scales, fascinated him in a way he couldn't explain. Maybe tomorrow would give him a chance to understand her better. Zara sat in her small private lab, staring at the data on her computer screen. 3 days had passed since she met the human engineer Jake Collins, and her body was still betraying her. Even thinking about him made her scales shimmer with unwanted colors. She had spent those 3 days avoiding him as much as possible, but it was hard. The station was not that big, and their work areas were close together. Every time she saw him in the halls or the cafeteria, her scales would light up like a festival display. "This is ridiculous," she muttered to herself, pulling up files about human biology on her computer. "I am a scientist. I can figure this out." Zara had studied many different species in her career. She knew that some aliens produced chemicals called pheromones that could affect other species. But she had worked with humans before and never had this problem. What made Jake Collins different? She opened a new file and started taking notes. Subject: human male, approximately 28 years old, brown hair, blue eyes, average height for his species. Every encounter had resulted in immediate and uncontrollable scale coloration lasting 4 to 6 hours. Her door chimed. "Come in," she called, not looking away from her screen. Still hiding from the human? Vex's amused voice made her scales flicker with embarrassment. "I am not hiding. I am researching." Vex walked over and looked at her screen. "Ah, yes, very scientific. Subject makes me feel strange and I do not like it. Very professional notes. Go away, Vex. You know you will have to work with him eventually. Commander Park assigned you both to the new atmospheric processor project." Zara's scales went pale with worry. "What? When?" "Today, in about an hour." Vex's scales showed amusement and sympathy at the same time. "You cannot avoid him forever, Zara. Besides, maybe working together will help you get used to him." After Vex left, Zara sat quietly for a few minutes, trying to calm herself. Her scales slowly returned to their normal green and brown pattern. She could do this. She was a professional. She would focus on the work and ignore whatever strange effect Jake had on her. An hour later, she walked into Engineering Lab 2, carrying her tablet and trying to look confident. Jake was already there, studying blueprints spread across a large table. "Good morning, Zara," he said, looking up with a smile. "I'm glad we're working together on this project." Immediately, her scales began their traitorous dance of colors. Purple and red spread across her arms and neck like spilled paint. She gripped her tablet tighter and tried to focus. "Good morning," she managed to say. "I have brought the biological requirements for the atmospheric system." "Great. I've been looking at the engineering side. But I need to understand more about how different species process air differently." Jake moved to make room for her at the table. When she stepped closer, her scales grew brighter. She could smell something about him, not bad, actually quite pleasant, that seemed to make her heart beat faster. "Are you okay?" Jake asked gently. "Your scales? They're very colorful today." Zara felt her face grow warm, which only made her scales more vivid. "I am fine. This is normal." Jake looked at her carefully. Vex mentioned that scale colors show emotions. "Are you angry with me? Did I do something wrong?" "No," Zara said quickly. "You did nothing wrong. It is complicated." They worked for 2 hours on the atmospheric processor plans. Despite her embarrassing scale displays, Zara found herself enjoying the work. Jake was smart and asked good questions. He listened carefully when she explained the biological needs of different species, and he came up with clever engineering solutions. "What if we use a 3-stage filtration system?" Jake suggested, drawing on the blueprints. "Stage 1 for the Keth, who need more nitrogen. Stage 2 for humans and Zalari, and Stage 3 for any other species we might encounter." "That could work," Zara said, leaning over to look at his drawing. She was so interested in the design that she forgot to be embarrassed about her scales. Jake noticed. "Hey, your scales just changed to blue and green." "That's new." Zara looked at her arms. He was right. The bright purples and reds had shifted to calmer colors. Blue and green mean I am thinking and interested in something. So different colors really do mean different emotions. Yes, it is how our species communicates feelings. Usually we can control it, but sometimes... She trailed off, her scales flickering back toward purple. "Sometimes?" Zara looked at him, trying to decide how much to tell him. His blue eyes were kind and curious, not judgmental. "Sometimes when we feel very strong emotions, we cannot control the colors. It is embarrassing." "What kind of strong emotions?" Before Zara could answer, an alarm started blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed and Commander Park's voice came over the intercom. "All hands to emergency stations. We have a critical failure in the main life support system. This is not a drill." Jake and Zara looked at each other, then ran toward the main engineering section. In the halls, people were moving quickly but not panicking. The station crew was well trained for emergencies. In the main engineering room, chaos met them. Dr. Carter was there with several other engineers, all looking worried. "What's the situation?" Jake asked. "The primary atmospheric recycler is failing," said Tony Walsh, the senior engineer. "We're losing breathable air and the backup systems can't handle the full load. We have maybe 6 hours of air left." "What about emergency oxygen?" Zara asked. "We have some, but not enough for everyone. And it won't work for the Keth. They need a different gas mixture." Jake studied the diagnostic screens. "Can we repair the main recycler?" "We've tried. It's too damaged. We need a completely new approach." Zara's mind was racing. She looked at the atmospheric processor plans they had been working on, still in her hand from when they ran out of the lab. "Jake," she said, her scales brightening with excitement. "Our processor design. Could we modify it to work as an emergency life support system?" Jake looked at the plans, then at the diagnostic data. "Maybe. We would need to build it fast, and we would need to make it work for all 3 species at once." "I can calculate the biological requirements," Zara said. "If you can handle the engineering, let's do it." For the next 4 hours, Jake and Zara worked together more closely than ever before. They had to stand side by side, sometimes touching as they reached for the same tools or looked at the same displays. Zara's scale showed every emotion she was feeling. Worry about the emergency, excitement about the technical challenge, and yes, that strange attraction to Jake that she still didn't understand. But Jake didn't seem to notice or care about her colors anymore. He was focused on the work, trusting her expertise and sharing his own knowledge freely. When she made a suggestion, he listened. When he had an idea, he explained it clearly so she could understand. "Try increasing the nitrogen flow by 15%, Zara said, watching the biological readouts. "Good idea," Jake said, making the adjustment. Their hands touched briefly as he reached for the controls, and Zara's scales flashed bright purple for a moment. This time, Jake did notice. "Does that color mean what I think it means?" he asked quietly. Zara nodded, not trusting herself to speak. "For what it's worth," Jake said, still working on the controls. "I think your scales are beautiful. All the colors." 2 hours later, their improvised atmospheric processor came online. The air quality readings started improving immediately. Everyone in engineering cheered, and Commander Park patted both Jake and Zara on the back. "Excellent work, both of you," she said. You may have saved everyone on this station." As the excitement died down and people started leaving the engineering room, Jake and Zara found themselves alone with the quietly humming machine they had built together. "We make a good team," Jake said. "Yes," Zara agreed. "We do." Her scales were showing soft purples and blues now, not the bright, embarrassing colors from before, but gentler shades that seemed to glow in the dim light. "Zara," Jake said carefully, "I don't fully understand what's happening between us, but I want you to know that I like working with you. I like talking with you, and I think you're brilliant." Zara's scales shifted to warm gold and pink, colors that meant happiness and gratitude. "Thank you, Jake. You are brilliant too, and kind." They stood there for a moment looking at each other. Then Dr. Carter appeared in the doorway. "There you are. I need to check on both of you." That was a long, stressful emergency. As they walked to the medical bay, Zara realized something important. Her scales had been changing colors all day, showing her emotions clearly. But for the first time since meeting Jake, she hadn't felt embarrassed about it. She had been too busy working with him, trusting him, maybe even beginning to care about him. The thought should have scared her. Instead, her scales glowed with soft, warm colors that meant hope. The next morning, Jake woke up feeling different. Working with Zara during the emergency had changed something. He had seen past her colorful scales to the brilliant, caring person underneath. When she concentrated on a problem, her whole face would light up with interest. When she explained something, her hands moved in graceful gestures that made even complex biology seem simple. He was getting dressed when his door chimed. "Come in," he called. Dr. Carter entered, looking serious. "Good morning, Jake. Can you come to my office? Commander Park wants to speak with both you and Zara. Both of us. Did we do something wrong?" "No, quite the opposite. But there are some things we need to discuss." 20 minutes later, Jake sat in Dr. Carter's medical office. Zara was already there, her scales showing nervous yellow and brown patterns. Commander Park sat across from them, holding a tablet. "First," the commander said, "I want to thank you both again for your work yesterday. Your quick thinking saved lives." "We were just doing our jobs," Jake said. "Yes, but you worked together exceptionally well. Which brings us to why we asked you here." Commander Park looked at Dr. Carter, who nodded. "We need to talk about what's been happening between you two," Dr. Carter said gently. "Jake, you mentioned Zara's scale reactions." "Zara, several people have noticed your colorful responses to Jake's presence." Zara's scales immediately flashed bright red with embarrassment. "I am sorry. I cannot control it. I have tried." "You don't need to apologize," Commander Park interrupted. "We think we know what's causing this." Dr. Carter pulled up some data on his computer screen. "Jake, I ran some tests on your blood samples from your physical exam. You have an unusual genetic variant. About 1 in 10,000 humans have it. You produce certain pheromones in higher concentrations than normal." "Pheromones?" Jake asked. "Chemical signals. Most of the time they don't affect other humans much. But with certain alien species..." He looked at Zara. "These chemicals are very similar to compounds that Zalari produce during important social bonding." Zara stared at the doctor. "You mean, my reactions are because of chemicals?" "Partly, yes. But here's the important thing. Pheromones can trigger attraction, but they can't create genuine feelings. What you're experiencing is real, even if it started with biology." Jake felt confused and a little worried. "So Zara's feelings aren't really her choice?" "That's not how it works," Dr. Carter explained. "Think of it like this. Pheromones might make someone notice you, but they can't make someone care about your personality, your kindness, or your intelligence. Those feelings have to develop naturally." Commander Park leaned forward. "We're telling you this because we want both of you to understand what's happening. There's nothing wrong with either of you. These kinds of cross-species attractions are actually more common than people think." "Really?" Zara asked, her scales showing surprised blues and greens. "Really. We have 3 other human-alien couples on this station and 2 more in the fleet. The difference is that Zalari scales make feelings more visible." Jake looked at Zara. Her scales were cycling through several colors: yellow worry, blue curiosity, and flashes of that purple that he was beginning to understand meant attraction. "How do you feel about this?" he asked her gently. Zara was quiet for a moment. "Confused," she said finally. "I thought I was losing control of myself. But if it is partly natural..." "The question is," Dr. Carter said, "what do you want to do about it?" You could both request transfers to different stations if this makes you uncomfortable. No, Jake said immediately. I mean, I don't want a transfer. I like working with Zara, even knowing that my reactions are partly because of chemicals. Zara asked, Are you kidding? Yesterday when we were working on the atmospheric processor, I saw how brilliant you are. How dedicated, how creative. Chemicals didn't make you stay up all night calculating gas mixtures for 3 different species. That was all you. Zara's scales shifted to soft pink and gold. Colors Jake was learning meant happiness. Besides, Jake continued, I've been around other Zalari, and none of them react to me the way you do. So there has to be something more personal about it. Commander Park smiled. Dr. Carter and I were hoping you'd both feel that way. Because we have a proposal for you. She pulled up new information on her tablet. Starfleet Science Division wants to study human-alien partnerships. Not just romantic relationships, but working partnerships too. They want to understand how mixed species teams might perform better than single-species groups. You want to study us? Zara asked. Only if you're willing. It would mean working together on more projects, documenting your processes, and yes, allowing some monitoring of your developing relationship. In return, you'd be eligible for some very prestigious research assignments. Jake looked at Zara. What do you think? I think... Zara paused, her scales showing thoughtful blue-green patterns. I think I would like to understand this better, and I would like to keep working with you if you are willing. Definitely willing, Dr. Carter smiled. Good. Now let me give you some practical advice. Zara, you can learn to manage your scale reactions better with practice. It's like learning to control blushing or nervousness. And Jake, you should know that your pheromone production varies with stress, exercise, and diet. If you want to be considerate, avoid heavily spiced foods and make sure you shower after working out. Zara's scales flickered with what looked like amusement. Are you saying he smells? Not bad, just intense for someone with your sensitivity. After the meeting, Jake and Zara walked together toward the cafeteria. Zara's scales were still showing soft colors, no more of the bright, embarrassing displays from before. I feel better knowing what was happening, Zara said. I was worried that I was sick, or that something was wrong with my scale control. I was worried that I was doing something to upset you, Jake admitted. I couldn't figure out if you liked me or hated me. Both sometimes, Zara said with a small laugh. I was attracted to you, but I was also embarrassed and confused. It was very frustrating. They sat down at a table with their lunch trays. For the first time, Jake noticed that other people were watching them. Some with curiosity, some with smiles, a few with frowns. Are people going to have problems with us working together? He asked. Zara looked around the cafeteria. Some will. There are always people who think species should not mix, but most people here are scientists and explorers. They understand that new things can be good. Vex appeared at their table, his scales showing bright patterns of amusement. So, Zara, I heard about your meeting with the command staff. Are you finally going to stop running away from your human? He is not my human, Zara protested, but her scales showed pink happiness rather than embarrassment. Not yet, Vex said, sitting down with his own tray. But I think he would like to be. Jake felt his face get warm. Is it that obvious? To everyone except Zara, apparently, Vex said. She is very smart about biology and very stupid about emotions. I am not stupid about emotions, Zara said. I am just careful. Being careful is smart, Jake said. This is all new for both of us. We should take our time and figure it out together. Vex's scales showed approval. Good answer, human. Zara, I like this one. He is patient and kind. I like him too, Zara said softly, her scales glowing with warm colors. After lunch, Jake and Zara went back to work on their atmospheric processor project. But now everything felt different. When Zara's scales changed colors, Jake paid attention to what they were telling him. When she showed blue and green, he knew she was interested in the technical discussion. When she showed yellow, he knew she was worried about something and would ask what was wrong. Your scales are like a second language, he said as they worked. I'm starting to understand what they mean. Most people do not pay attention to scale colors, Zara said. They think they are just random. They're not random at all. They're beautiful. And they help me understand what you're thinking. Zara's scales shifted to deep purple and gold, colors Jake didn't recognize yet. What do those colors mean? He asked. Zara looked at her arms, then at Jake. Affection, she said quietly. They mean affection. Jake smiled. I'm honored. Jake, Zara said, not looking at him. Would you like to have dinner together tonight? Not in the cafeteria. I have a small cooking unit in my quarters. I could make something from my homeworld. Jake's heart sped up. I would love that. Good, Zara said, her scales showing happy pink and gold patterns. I will show you what real Zalari food tastes like. As they worked together for the rest of the day, Jake found himself looking forward to the evening more than he had looked forward to anything in a long time. For the first time since arriving on the station, he felt like he was exactly where he belonged, and judging by the steady, warm colors of Zara's scales, she felt the same way. 2 weeks had passed since Zara's dinner invitation, and life on New Horizons Station had settled into a pleasant routine. Jake and Zara worked together every day, and their atmospheric processor project was ahead of schedule. In the evenings, they often ate together and talked about their different worlds and cultures. Jake was even learning some basic Zalari language, though his pronunciation made Zara's scales flicker with amusement. But on this particular morning, Jake woke up to find everything had changed. Emergency meeting in Conference Room 1. Commander Park's voice came over the intercom. All senior staff report immediately. Jake hurried to get dressed. He hadn't been called to senior staff meetings before, but something in the commander's voice sounded serious. When he reached the conference room, he saw Zara already there, her scales showing worried yellow patterns. Dr. Carter and several other department heads were present too. Good, everyone's here, Commander Park said. She looked tired and stressed. We have a situation. 2 ships arrived this morning, one from Earth Command and one from the Zalari Council. A tall, stern-looking man in an Earth Command uniform stepped forward. I'm Admiral Robert Hayes, he said. I'm here to conduct an investigation into inappropriate relationships between human and alien personnel on this station. Next to him stood a Zalari with dark, formal scales and cold, golden eyes. I am Administrator Keth, the Zalari said. The Zalari Council has similar concerns about the mixing of our species. Jake felt his stomach drop. Beside him, Zara's scales went pale with fear. Commander Park's jaw was tight with anger. With respect, Admiral, the relationships on this station are between consenting adults and are not affecting our mission performance. In fact, our mixed species teams have been exceptionally successful. That's exactly the problem, Admiral Hayes said. These relationships are creating an unhealthy dependency on alien cooperation. Humans need to maintain their independence and cultural purity. Administrator Keth nodded. The Zalari Council agrees. Our species have worked together successfully for years without needing personal entanglements. These relationships threaten the professional nature of our alliance. That's ridiculous, Dr. Carter spoke up. Jake and Zara saved this station during the emergency 2 weeks ago. Their partnership is an asset, not a problem. Admiral Hayes pulled out a tablet. Mr. Collins, you're being reassigned to the Earthship Endeavor, effective immediately. Your replacement, Tony Walsh, is already on board my ship. What? Jake stood up. You can't just transfer me without cause. I can and I am. Your involvement with an alien compromises your objectivity and your loyalty to humanity. Administrator Keth turned to Zara. Dr. Zara, you are being offered a position with the Zalari Science Institute on our homeworld. It is a great honor. You would head your own research department. Zara's scales were flashing rapid cycles of colors: fear, anger, sadness, confusion. I do not want to leave my position here. The choice is simple, Administrator Keth said coldly. Accept the position on the homeworld, or face disciplinary action for conduct unbecoming a Zalari scientist. This is outrageous, Commander Park said. Both Jake and Zara are exemplary officers. You're punishing them for having feelings. We're protecting the integrity of human-alien relations, Admiral Hayes replied. Personal relationships create complications and conflicts of interest. Jake looked at Zara. Her scales were showing deep purple and black now. Colors he had learned meant despair and fear. He wanted to reach out and comfort her, but with the 2 officials watching, he didn't dare. How long do we have to decide? Jake asked. You don't, Admiral Hayes said. The decision has been made. You leave with me today. And I expect Dr. Zara's answer within 24 hours, Administrator Keth added. The meeting ended abruptly, leaving everyone in shock. As people filed out, Jake managed to catch Zara's arm gently. We need to talk, he whispered. Not here. she whispered back. My lab in 1 hour. Jake spent the next hour pacing his quarters, thinking furiously. There had to be something they could do. When he reached Zara's lab, he found her sitting at her computer, but she wasn't working. Her scales were cycling through dark, unhappy colors. I cannot believe this is happening, she said without looking up. We'll figure something out, Jake said, sitting beside her. How? They are giving us no choice. Either we separate or they destroy our careers. Jake was quiet for a moment. What if we refuse both options? What do you mean? What if we apply for transfer to a different station together? Or request asylum from another government? Zara's scales flickered with brief hope, then went dark again. Jake, be realistic. Earth Command and the Zilari Council have power in all human and Zilari space. We cannot run from this. Then we fight. With what? We are just 2 people. Before Jake could answer, Vex entered the lab without knocking. His scales were showing urgent yellow and red patterns. Zara, you need to know something. The other Zilari on the station are talking. Administrator Keth's arrival has made them nervous about their own relationships with humans. What do you mean? Zara asked. Some of them are considering ending their friendships with human crew members. They are afraid of being investigated too. Jake felt sick. So this isn't just about us. It's affecting everyone. It gets worse, Vex continued. I overheard Administrator Keth talking to the Zilari communications officer. They are planning to study your scale reactions to Jake. They think you might be mentally damaged by exposure to human pheromones. Zara's scales went completely white, a color Jake had never seen before. They want to study me like a laboratory animal. That's not going to happen, Jake said firmly. How can you stop it? Zara asked, her voice small and scared. Jake took her hands in his. Her scales were cold and pale, because we're not just 2 people fighting this alone. Everyone on this station has seen how well we work together. They've seen that our relationship makes us better, not worse. Jake is right, Vex said. Many of the crew members are angry about these transfer orders. Dr. Carter is calling it political interference in scientific operations. Commander Park is furious. Zara looked up at Jake with her large golden eyes. You would risk your career for this, from me? Zara, in the past month, you've become the most important person in my life. You're brilliant, you're kind, you make me laugh, and yes, your scales are beautiful even when they're showing unhappy colors like right now. I'm not letting some narrow-minded officials destroy what we have. Her scales started showing the first hints of color since the morning, soft pink and purple. But what can we actually do? We prove them wrong, Jake said. We show everyone that our relationship doesn't weaken us or our work. We show them that diversity makes us stronger. Over the next few hours, Jake and Zara worked on a desperate plan. They would request permission to present their case to both Admiral Hayes and Administrator Keth. They would show their successful project results, their efficiency ratings and testimonials from other crew members. But when they presented their request to Commander Park, she shook her head sadly. I admire your determination, but Admiral Hayes has made it clear that his mind is made up. He sees Jake as compromised and Zara as a corrupting influence. What about the research project Starfleet Science Division wanted us to work on? Jake asked, canceled. Admiral Hayes overruled the Science Division. That evening, Jake sat in his quarters, packing his belongings with a heavy heart. Tomorrow he would be on the Endeavor, probably never to see Zara again. There had to be something he could do, some way to fight this, but he couldn't think of what. His door chimed. Come in. Zara entered, and Jake's heart nearly broke at the sight of her. Her scales were showing the darkest colors he had ever seen, deep purples and blacks that spoke of grief and despair. I wanted to say goodbye, she said quietly. This isn't goodbye, Jake said. I'll find a way back to you. I promise. How? They are transferring you to the other side of human space, and if I do not accept the position on the homeworld, they will court-martial me. Jake pulled her close, not caring who might see. Her scales were cold against his skin. Zara, I need you to know something. Meeting you has been the best thing that ever happened to me. Whatever happens next, I want you to remember that. Her scales warmed slightly at his touch, showing hints of that purple-gold color that meant affection. I will remember, she whispered. I will remember all of it. They held each other for a long time, both knowing that tomorrow everything would change. Outside Zara's quarters, the station continued its work, but for Jake and Zara, it felt like their whole world was ending. Neither of them noticed the small recording device that Vex had hidden in the lab earlier, or the fact that their entire conversation had been transmitted to every computer terminal on the station. Sometimes, the best way to fight is to let people see the truth. Jake woke up to the sound of his door chiming repeatedly. He had barely slept, knowing this was his last day on New Horizon Station. When he opened the door, he found Dr. Carter standing there with a wide smile on his face. "Get dressed and come to conference room 1, Dr. Carter said. "And bring Zara. You're both going to want to see this." "Doctor, what's going on?" "Just trust me. This is good news for once." 30 minutes later, Jake and Zara sat in the conference room with Commander Park, Dr. Carter, and several other senior staff members. Zara's scales were showing cautious hope, pale blues and greens mixed with worried yellow. Admiral Hayes and Administrator Keth were also present, both looking distinctly uncomfortable. "Before we begin," Commander Park said, "I want everyone to review some data that came to our attention yesterday evening." She activated the main screen, which showed charts and statistics. "These are performance ratings for all mixed-species teams on this station over the past 6 months, compared to single-species teams." The data was clear. Mixed teams consistently outperformed single-species teams in problem-solving, innovation, and efficiency. "That's interesting," Dr. Carter said, "but it gets better. Show them the emergency response data." The screen changed to show response times and success rates during emergencies. Again, mixed teams performed better. "And finally," Commander Park said, "the special case study." The screen now showed Jake and Zara's atmospheric processor project, their emergency response during the life support crisis, and their ongoing research results. Their performance ratings were the highest on the station. Administrator Keth looked annoyed. "Statistics can be manipulated to show anything." "You're right," said a new voice from the doorway. Everyone turned to see a woman in a Starfleet Science Division uniform entering the room. She was older, with gray hair and the confident bearing of someone used to being in charge. "I'm Director Sarah Kim from Starfleet Science Division," she said, "and I have some additional information to share." Admiral Hayes frowned. "Director, your jurisdiction doesn't extend to personnel decisions." "Actually, it does when those decisions interfere with critical research projects," Director Kim replied smoothly. She activated her own tablet and new information appeared on the screen. 3 days ago, the colony world of New Terra experienced a catastrophic atmospheric failure. 200,000 people, humans, Zalari, and Keth, were in danger of suffocation. Jake and Zara exchanged glances. They hadn't heard about this. The only thing that saved them was an atmospheric processor design created here on New Horizon Station. A design created by Jake Collins and Dr. Zara working together. The screen showed images of the successful rescue operation, with their processor design being used to restore breathable air to the entire colony. Furthermore, Director Kim continued, "After analyzing the rescue, our engineers determined that neither the human nor the Zalari approach alone would have worked. It required the specific combination of human engineering adaptability and Zalari biological expertise." Administrator Keth's scales were showing uncomfortable patterns. "That is, unfortunate timing." "Oh, it gets better," Director Kim said. "Yesterday evening, we received a petition signed by every single person on this station, human, Zalari, and Keth alike, requesting that Mr. Collins and Dr. Zara be allowed to continue their partnership." She activated another screen showing hundreds of signatures and comments. "Listen to some of these comments," she said, and began reading aloud. "Jake and Zara represent the best of interspecies cooperation. Their relationship inspires us all to work better together. They prove that our differences make us stronger, not weaker." Jake felt tears in his eyes. He looked at Zara, whose scales were beginning to show the first bright, happy colors he had seen in days. "There's more," Director Kim said. "We also received this." The screen showed a video message. Jake gasped when he recognized the speaker. It was the governor of New Terra Colony, a distinguished-looking Keth with formal blue scales. To Admiral Hayes and Administrator Keth, the governor said in the recording, "I am told that you wish to separate the team that saved our colony because you disapprove of their personal relationship. I find this illogical. Their personal bond made their professional collaboration stronger, not weaker. New Terra Colony formally requests that Jake Collins and Dr. Zara be allowed to continue their work together." Admiral Hayes looked uncomfortable. Governor Thane's opinion is noted, but policy is policy. Actually, Director Kim said, that brings me to the real reason I'm here. As of this morning, the Science Division has received authorization to establish a new research program studying beneficial human-alien partnerships. Jake Collins and Dr. Zara have been specifically requested to lead this program. She handed official documents to both Admiral Hayes and Administrator Keth. These are direct orders from Earth Command and the Zalari High Council, respectively. The program takes priority over all other personnel decisions. Jake couldn't believe what he was hearing. You mean, you're both being promoted, Director Kim said with a smile. Jake, you're now Senior Interspecies Engineer. Zara, you're Senior Xenobiologist for Human-Alien Relations. Your first assignment is to establish protocols for mixed species teams throughout the fleet. Zara's scales exploded with brilliant colors, bright golds and pinks and purples that spoke of joy and excitement and love all mixed together. Administrator Keth stood up stiffly. The Zalari Council was not consulted about this decision. Actually, they were, Director Kim said. 3 members of the High Council have family working in mixed species environments. When they learned about your intended actions here, they were displeased. They specifically requested that this partnership be preserved as an example of successful cooperation. Admiral Hayes looked defeated. My orders were to prevent inappropriate relationships. And now your orders are to support beneficial partnerships, Director Kim replied. Times change, Admiral. The universe is bigger than any one species can handle alone. We need cooperation, not separation. After the officials left, Jake and Zara found themselves alone in the conference room. For a moment, they just looked at each other in amazement. I cannot believe that actually worked, Zara said, her scales still showing happy colors. We didn't do it alone, Jake said. Everyone on this station supported us, because they could see what we have is real, Zara said softly. Jake moved closer to her. Zara, I need to ask you something. These past weeks, getting to know you, working with you, falling for you, it's been the most amazing time of my life. I know we're from different species, and I know it won't always be easy, but I want to try. I want to see where this goes. Zara's scales shifted to that deep purple gold color that meant affection and love. Jake Collins, are you asking me to be your partner? In work and in life? If you'll have me. Instead of answering with words, Zara stood up and walked to her quarters door control. She sealed the door and turned back to Jake with scales that glowed like sunset colors, warm oranges and pinks and golds that seemed to light up the room. For days, I have wanted to do this without worrying about who might see, she said, to let my scales show exactly how I feel about you without being embarrassed or scared. She moved into Jake's arms and her scales grew even brighter. I love you, Jake Collins. I love your mind, your kindness, your terrible pronunciation of Zalari words, and yes, even your strange human pheromones. Jake laughed and pulled her closer. I love you too, Zara, all of you. Your brilliance, your dedication, your beautiful scales, and the way you make me want to be a better person. They kissed then, and Zara's scales blazed with colors Jake had never seen before. Bright, joyful patterns that seemed to dance across her skin like living art. When they finally broke apart, both were smiling. So what happens now? Jake asked. Now we get back to work, Zara said, her scales settling into warm, contented colors. We have a research program to run, protocols to establish, and a universe full of different species who could learn to work together better. Together? Together. 6 months later, Jake and Zara stood in the observation deck of their new research station, watching ships from a dozen different species dock at their facility. Their program had grown beyond anyone's expectations, with teams requesting to study partnership protocols and individuals from different species wanting to learn about cooperation. Do you ever regret it? Jake asked, putting his arm around Zara's waist. Choosing this life, choosing me? Zara's scales showed the deep, steady colors of complete contentment, soft purples and blues and greens that spoke of peace and happiness and love. Never, she said. You taught me that the best things in life come from taking risks and being brave enough to trust someone different from yourself. You taught me that differences aren't obstacles to overcome, Jake replied. They're gifts that make us stronger. Outside their window, the stars shone bright and endless, full of possibilities for new partnerships, new cooperation, and new love between species that had once thought they had nothing in common. And in the research station, Jake and Zara worked side by side, their love story becoming the foundation for countless others who would learn that the universe was better when its people came together instead of staying apart. Zara's scales glowed with warm, happy colors, and for the first time since